As we turn the calendar to July, a lot of us are beginning to think about the first day of school, which if you break it down, it's only a matter of weeks away.
Break it
it's
down.
true. The big box stores like Staples and Target, have you been in there? They're already offering back to school sales.
I pretend not to see it. Teachers are certainly preparing too. And we're joined this afternoon by educator Rebecca Knighton and Jessica May, Colorado's Teacher of the Year for 2024. Congratulations.
Thank
That
you.
is so major.
Thank you so much.
And you two have co-authored a book that we want to hear all about because it's meant to help teachers connect with older students. So let's start there. Tell us a little bit about it.
Absolutely. So it really is geared towards creating those relationships with middle school and high schoolers, because we usually forget about that and we just go for the content. And right now we're seeing behavior at its ultimate level that teachers have ever seen. And so we really need to look at this from a different angle. And it really does start with the relationship part. That's where we have to start. And so we wrote a book on how can the adults in education really dig down into how can we make this better from our standpoint, because we're the only ones who have control in the classroom.
Wow. And you know, Rebecca, you're a former educator yourself. So what are some of the bad habits? And I say that quote unquote, because a lot of, teachers are well-intentioned, but what would you say are some of the things that you shouldn't be doing that's not helping build that relationship, so to speak, between you and a middle schooler?
Yeah. One of our chapters in the book is about how to handle behavior, right? And we have some myth busting, right? So myth busting about behavior is that you go and you make an example of a student who's misbehaving, right? What you've done right there is instantly severed any sort of relationship with all of the person's peers in the classroom. And so having more grace and understanding of students, treating them like humans.
Yep.
A lot of what's in the book is based on my PhD research about teachers who are amazing like Jessica and what is common amongst what they do. And one of the fundamental things that they do is they see students as fellow humans. And they treat them with dignity that way. And they see their job as guiding their development as humans as well as learners. And so when you really can connect with a student at that level and respect them and believe in them, they're gonna work for you.
Seems so like base level,
Right.
but right back to basics to get, to get those connections. So let's kind of talk on the flip side. You're both educators, maybe I'll pose a question to both of you. What's a good example of the best teachers doing something the right way to get that connectivity with their students? Like, do you have an example?
Yeah, so the first 2 weeks really are not focusing on the content. But a lot of us teachers are told to do that. We just don't necessarily know how. And it really is doing more hands-on. We do role playing, we do silly lip syncing battles. I'm teaching them all of my expectations during those 2 weeks, making it as fun as possible, doing things on a whiteboard instead of a piece of paper. But really it's giving them the clarity that here's what I'm gonna do when you mess up, because you're gonna.
Right.
I expect you to make mistakes, but it's important what you do after the mistakes. Another thing that the best aren't doing are kicking kids out of the classroom, not sending them to the principal's office. As soon as you do that, you have lost your power. And really, there's not a lot of power that admin has. And if anything, they suspend them. Now you've really wrecked your relationship with that kid who's gonna come in like a hornet when he comes back 3 days later.
This is fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, please
Yeah,
chime in.
another example of the best is oftentimes when you have those students who are really struggling in your class, they're disruptive, they won't work, it's because they lack self-efficacy. They don't believe they can be successful at what you're asking them to do. So one of the things that I think is very masterful, and I've seen Jessica do this, is you meet kids where they're at. You don't come in and you say, okay, you're in 7th grade, we're gonna teach you the 7th grade standards, you should know how to write an essay. It's like they don't know how to write an essay. So one of the things Jessica does, which I love, is she breaks it down. She doesn't say we're writing an essay. They work through each part of an essay separately. So the kids do it because they aren't automatically frozen if I can't do this. So they write the intro and they write all these pieces. And at the end, then they copy it over into essay format. And then they've written an essay. And I was in her class observing one time, and the student raised her hand. She said, I can't write an essay. And Jessica says, well, did you do all these other things? She's like, yeah. She's like, you already wrote it. Wow. And the student said, what? I wrote an essay?
Right.
It completely transformed what she thought about herself and what was possible for her.
You're building confidence.
It was
empowering them.
empowering them, reframing how they see
Right.
themselves and what's possible in their lives.
Oh, this is so powerful. I hope everybody reads your book. And I know that a big part of the book is developing authenticity.
Yes.
Why is that vital for teachers to do?
I'll say on TV, it's called, they know the BS meter, okay? So,
Intuitive.
I
so
know.
if I am not a real person, and in those first couple weeks, me not showing them who my family is, what my fears are, what my dreams are, they aren't going to let down their walls if I don't do it first. And so authenticity, even if you think you are, they will smell it out and it will go wrong. It will go all sideways for you for the rest of the year.
One other thing is in my research study, I looked at the teachers who were amazing, but I also interviewed adults who had been the student who was the disruptor and had a teacher like that. And one of my participants, she said she'd had a lot of trauma in her life. And she said like that little seed inside of her of the essence of who she was had been dampened. But when she was hanging out with the teacher who was really authentic and believed in her, was like, she said just by being near that person, it started to wake that part of herself up and she could become more authentic. It was beautiful.
It is so beautiful. Before you guys go, I do want to ask you,
Yes.
Rebecca, obviously being in the classroom for many years, and now, Jessica, you are still there.
Yes.
Talk to us about what is the hope that you see in the future? What is the greatest thing about these kids growing up? Because God knows they're going to take care of us
They
one
are.
day.
They are. I think what people don't see and give them credit for is they are extremely insightful. They're very compassionate, and they do see what's going on around them. They do see that cell phones are a problem. They do see things. And so I think the greatest thing is we have the best job in the world, that we get these humans and we get them ready to be members of the community. There's nothing to worry about. They're okay. A lot of people think that, our future's not bright. It is.
I agree.
It really is.
Final words. We have
Yeah.
just about like 20 seconds, but final words.
Yes. Just that people think that their pain is a detriment, but when you can help reframe that for kids of how they can bring that to benefit and change the world in a positive way, it makes all the difference.
I love it. Wow. Well,
Yeah.
Jessica May, Rebecca Knighton, thank you so much for writing the book, for being here. And just repeat the name of the book, please. I want
Go
everybody
for it.
Okay. Flip the script.
Yes.
Breaking down barriers, building relationships, and engaging secondary students.
Just go with Flip the Script.
Incredible
You'll find it on
script.
Amazon.
I was going to say,
on
where
Amazon.
can we find
Yep.
it?
I feel
Yeah,
like
Amazon.
parents can benefit from this book
Absolutely.
too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
It's so empowering
I
being
know.
around good teachers. I'm like, God, just please let my kids have teachers like you. I
Same.
think that every time. I'm like, what a
True.
blessing that would
I know.
be.
Yep.